brothers, 50 years ago this year, Honda dropped something on American roads that nobody saw coming: the Gold Wing. While we were all expecting another screaming sport bike from Japan, Honda rolled out a machine that would redefine what it meant to eat up miles on two wheels. This wasn't just another motorcycle. This was the birth of the modern touring bike, and it happened right when we needed it most, in the heart of the 1970s, when America was rediscovering the open road. Birth of the Gold Wing. Back in 1974, when Nixon was leaving the White House and gas lines were wrapping around city blocks, Honda's engineers were cooking up something revolutionary in their labs. See, while Harley was still building bikes the way they had since the 1940s, and the British were having their own problems, Honda looked at what American riders really wanted for long-distance touring. What they found was that we wanted comfort, reliability, and the kind of power that could pull two riders and their gear across the Continental Divide without breaking a sweat. The result was the GL1000 Goldwing, a flat four-engine mounted backwards in the frame, putting the center of gravity exactly where it needed to be. That first Goldwing wasn't trying to be the fastest bike on the road. Hell, it wasn't even trying to be the prettiest. What it was trying to be was the most capable touring machine ever built, and from day one, it succeeded. Honda took everything they'd learned building cars and applied it to a motorcycle. Water cooling, shaft drive, a suspension system that actually worked with a passenger. This was space-age stuff in 1975. The timing couldn't have been better. We were coming out of the muscle car era, gas was expensive, and suddenly the idea of seeing America on two wheels instead of four started making a lot of sense. Honda didn't just build a motorcycle, they built a machine for the American dream of the open road, and we embraced it like a long-lost brother. Before we get into it, if you love motorcycles and the stories behind them, make sure you give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell. Let's continue. First ride and early reception. Picture this. It's 1975. You walk into a Honda dealership, and sitting there next to the CB750s and the smaller bikes is this thing. The Goldwing looked like nothing else on the showroom floor. While other bikes were trying to look mean and aggressive, the Goldwing looked comfortable, sophisticated, almost automotive in its approach. Those first rides were something else entirely. Riders who'd been beating themselves up on rigid-frame Harleys or cramped sport bikes suddenly found themselves on a machine that could cruise at 70 mph all day long without their kidneys filing a complaint. The engine was smooth as silk. That flat four configuration canceled out most of the vibration that made long rides a test of endurance. But it wasn't just comfort that got people talking. It was capability. Here was a bike that could carry you and your partner from Los Angeles to New York with your gear, and you'd arrive looking like you'd just been out for a Sunday ride. The water-cooled engine meant no more worrying about overheating in stop-and-go traffic. The shaft drive meant no more roadside chain adjustments every few hundred miles. The motorcycle press didn't know what to make of it at first. Cycle magazine called it a motorcycle for people who don't like motorcycles, and they meant it as a compliment. This was a machine that opened up long-distance touring to riders who'd never considered it before. Folks who wanted to see the country but didn't want to arrive beat up and exhausted. Of course, the traditionalists had their opinions. Some of the old-timers called it a two-wheeled car or worse. But you know what? Those same guys were buying them within a couple of years, because when you're 500 miles from home and the sun's going down, comfort and reliability beat image every single time. Engineering and performance. Let's talk about what made this machine tick, because Honda didn't just throw together another bike and hope for the best. The GL1000's flat four engine was a masterpiece of engineering that would influence motorcycle design for decades to come. Mounted longitudinally in the frame with the cylinders sticking out into the airstream, it created a low center of gravity and natural cooling that no other configuration could match. That engine was putting out 80 horsepower, which might not sound like much by today's standards, but in 1975, it was serious power delivered in a way that was completely usable. The torque curve was flat as a Kansas highway. You could lug it down to 2,000 RPM in top gear, and it would pull cleanly without complaint. Try that on most bikes of the era, and you'd be reaching for the clutch and downshifting. The shaft drive was another stroke of genius. While everyone else was dealing with chain maintenance, adjustment, and replacement, Goldwing riders were just riding. No more carrying extra master links, no more stopping every 500 miles to adjust chain tension. The shaft was sealed, lubricated for life, and smooth as butter. It added a little weight, sure, but it also added reliability that made cross-country touring practical for the average rider. Honda's suspension engineering was equally impressive. The Goldwing came with adjustable rear shocks and a front end that actually worked when loaded down with gear and a passenger. This wasn't revolutionary technology, but it was the first time anyone had applied automotive-level engineering to motorcycle touring. The result was a bike that handled predictably whether you were riding solo or two-up with a week's worth of gear. And let's not forget the little things that showed Honda was thinking about real-world touring. The fuel tank held over 4 gallons, giving you 200-plus mile range. The electrical system was robust enough to run accessories without dimming the headlight. Even the kickstand was engineered to handle the weight of a fully loaded bike without sinking into hot asphalt. The Goldwing in American culture. By the late 1970s, something beautiful was happening on America's highways. You'd be cruising down Interstate 40 through Arizona or winding through the Blue Ridge Mountains on the Skyline Drive, and you'd start seeing them, couples on Goldwings, loaded down with matching luggage, riding the dream that Jack Kerouac wrote about, but with Honda reliability and comfort. The Goldwing didn't just change motorcycling, it changed who could be a motorcyclist. Suddenly, you didn't need to be a 25-year-old daredevil to cross the country on 2 wheels. Couples in their 40s and 50s were discovering the freedom of motorcycle touring, often for the first time in their lives. The bike was comfortable enough for riders who'd given up motorcycles when they got married, reliable enough for folks who couldn't afford to be stranded in the middle of nowhere. The Goldwing became the perfect machine for rediscovering America at 65 miles per hour. You could load up on Friday afternoon and be in Sturgis by Sunday, or point it toward the Grand Canyon and know you'd get there without drama. The bike spawned an entire culture of touring riders. Goldwing clubs popped up in every state, organizing rallies that would draw thousands of riders. These weren't the rowdy gatherings you might think of. These were families, retirees, working folks who'd saved up all year for a 2-week tour of the national parks. The Goldwing made motorcycle touring respectable, accessible, and addictive. By 1980, you could spot a Goldwing rider from a mile away. They had that relaxed, confident look of someone who knew their machine would take them anywhere they pointed it. They carried more gear than seemed possible, rode in all kinds of weather, and always seemed to be having more fun than the rest of us. The Goldwing had created a new kind of motorcycle rider, and American roads were better for it. Major changes through the decades. Honda didn't just build the Goldwing and walk away. They kept improving it year after year, always listening to what we riders wanted. The evolution of the Goldwing tells the story of American motorcycle touring from the Carter administration to today. In 1980, Honda bumped the engine up to 1100 cc and added a fairing that actually worked. This wasn't some bolt-on aftermarket piece. This was wind tunnel tested, aerodynamically designed protection that turned highway riding from an endurance test into a pleasure cruise. They also added a luggage rack and better instrumentation, showing they understood that touring riders needed practical features, not just more power. The big revolution came in 1984 with the introduction of the GL 1200 Interstate. Honda added their first integrated luggage system, hard bags that were part of the bike's design, not afterthoughts. They also introduced the Aspencade model with a radio, cruise control, and enough comfort features to make a Cadillac jealous. Some riders complained it was getting too civilized, but the market spoke loud and clear. These bikes sold as fast as Honda could build them. 1988 brought the GL 1500 and Honda really went all out. 6 cylinders, 1500cc, fuel injection, reverse gear, and enough electronic gadgets to confuse a NASA engineer. This was the bike that truly established the Goldwing as the king of the touring world. It was also the bike that started the great touring war with Harley-Davidson, who finally realized they needed to build something to compete with Honda's dominance. Through the 1990s and 2000s, Honda kept refining the formula. Better suspension, more power, improved ergonomics, and enough technology to make the original GL 1000 look like a Model T. But through all the changes, the basic mission remained the same: build the best touring motorcycle in the world and make it reliable enough to trust your life to. The current GL 1800 carries forward 50 years of continuous improvement, but it's still recognizably a Goldwing. Same mission, same commitment to touring excellence, just refined to a level that would have seemed impossible back in 1975. If you're enjoying this ride through history, give this video a like. It really helps our channel grow and keeps these stories alive. There's nothing better than sharing these memories with fellow riders who understand what these machines meant to us. Rider Stories and Brotherhood. You know what really made the Goldwing special? It wasn't the engineering or the comfort or even the reliability. It was the people it brought together. There's something about spending 10 hours a day on a motorcycle that creates bonds between riders, and Goldwing owners took that to a whole new level. These weren't just riders. They were explorers, adventurers, people who'd figured out that the journey really was more important than the destination. The stories these riders could tell would fill libraries. There was the couple from Ohio who rode their Goldwing to all 50 state capitals, collecting postcards along the way. The retired teacher from Arizona who put 300,000 miles on his GL 1100, wearing out 3 engines but never losing his enthusiasm for the next ride. The group of friends from Texas who rode to Alaska every summer for 15 years, their Goldwings loaded down with camping gear and enough spare parts to rebuild a small motorcycle. Goldwing rallies became legendary gatherings where total strangers would become lifelong friends over a shared love of the open road. These weren't just motorcycle events, they were celebrations of a lifestyle that valued freedom, adventure, and the kind of self-reliance that comes from knowing you can handle whatever the road throws at you. The bikes have gotten more sophisticated, the technology more advanced, but the core community remains the same. People who understand that motorcycling isn't just about getting from point A to point B, it's about discovering everything that lies between. The 50th Anniversary Edition. Honda could have just slapped some special paint on a regular Goldwing and called it an Anniversary Edition, but that's not how they roll. The 2025 Goldwing 50th Anniversary Edition is a celebration of everything that made this bike legendary, combined with technology that would have seemed like science fiction back in 1975. The anniversary bike gets exclusive Pearl Hawk's Eye blue paint that pays homage to the original GL 1000 colors, with gold accents that catch the light just right when you're cruising down a mountain highway at sunset. But it's more than just pretty paint. Honda loaded this edition with features that show how far touring technology has come. The 1833C 6-cylinder engine now produces 126 horsepower and is smoother than anything Honda has ever built. The 7-speed DCT transmission can read your riding style and shift accordingly, or you can take manual control when you want to feel more connected to the machine. The suspension automatically adjusts to load and road conditions, keeping the bike level whether you're riding solo or 2-up with a week's worth of gear. What really sets the Anniversary Edition apart is the technology integration. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, built-in navigation that knows where you are and where you're going, heated and cooled seats, and enough connectivity to keep you in touch with the world when you want to be, and disconnected when you don't. But here's the thing that Honda got right. Despite all the modern technology, it still feels like a Goldwing. The riding position is comfortable for all-day cruising. The controls fall naturally to hand, and when you fire it up, that distinctive Goldwing sound reminds you that you're riding 50 years of touring evolution. The Anniversary Edition is limited production, and Honda knows that most of these bikes will be bought by riders who understand what the Goldwing represents. These aren't just motorcycles, they're rolling tributes to 5 decades of American adventure, exploration, and the enduring appeal of the open road. Legacy that changed motorcycling. Looking back over 50 years, it's clear that the Honda Goldwing didn't just change touring motorcycles, it changed the entire concept of what a motorcycle could be. Before the Goldwing, motorcycles were transportation or recreation, but rarely both. Honda proved that you could build a machine that was practical enough for daily commuting and capable enough for transcontinental touring. The Goldwing's influence extends far beyond Honda's own lineup. Every modern touring bike, from Harley's Ultra Limited to BMW's K1600, traces its DNA back to that original GL1000. The idea of a motorcycle as a comfortable, reliable, long-distance touring machine was revolutionary in 1975, and it's now the standard by which all touring bikes are measured. More importantly, the Goldwing changed who could be a motorcyclist. It opened up the sport to riders who wanted comfort and reliability, not just speed and thrills. It made motorcycle touring accessible to couples, families, and older riders who might never have considered long-distance riding on anything else. In doing so, it probably saved the American motorcycle industry by expanding the market beyond young thrill seekers. The bike also influenced motorcycle design philosophy in ways that are still felt today. The emphasis on ergonomics, weather protection, cargo capacity, and long-term reliability became standard expectations for touring bikes. Honda showed that motorcycles could be engineered with the same attention to detail and user experience as automobiles, and the entire industry had to step up their game. Perhaps most importantly, the Goldwing preserved and expanded the culture of American motorcycle touring just when it might have faded away. Those cross-country rides, those impromptu friendships at roadside diners, that sense of freedom and adventure that comes from pointing your bike toward the horizon. The Goldwing kept all of that alive and made it accessible to generations of riders who might otherwise have never experienced it. 50 years later, when you see a Goldwing on the highway, loaded down with gear and heading toward adventure, you're looking at the continuation of a tradition that started with a group of Honda engineers who understood that sometimes the best way to improve something is to completely reimagine what it could be. For 50 years, the Honda Goldwing has been the machine that made the American dream of the open road real for millions of riders. It changed what motorcycling could be, and it's still doing it today. Thanks for riding with us today, brothers. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, subscribe for more stories from the golden years of motorcycling. And we'll see you on the next ride. Keep the shiny side up.